On Tuesday, Shaun King tweeted out a report that the party was pressuring Michael Bloomberg to drop out and support Joe Biden. Now, that's, of course, in order to coalesce around the one candidate, Joe Biden, in order to stop Bernie Sanders from getting an advantage in the delegate counts and winning the Democratic nomination. So now Shaun King tweets this out on Tuesday. He says, breaking MSNBC and Maddow reported that multiple senior officials within the Democratic Party are interfering with the primaries to stop Bernie Sanders. Now, he provides a video clip showing NBC national politics reporter Josh Letterman saying that the Mike Bloomberg campaign was feeling, quote, intense pressure from Democrats Tuesday night to drop out. I'm going to show you that video and because it shows exactly what he says.
Yeah, intense pressure tonight on Mike Bloomberg to bow out of the race, clear a path for Joe Biden. Brian, we've been talking to Democratic officials, senior people within the party, people who have a lot of influence, who have acknowledged that they have been in touch with the Bloomberg campaign, trying to make the case that now is the time, for the sake of party unity, for him to step aside, particularly as the party really coalesces behind Joe Biden. So far, no indications that's going to take place.
All right, so that's what he said. Influential people in the Democratic Party pressuring Bloomberg to drop out to coalesce around Biden. That's what he said, verbatim. So now, following that report, on Wednesday, after the horrific showing on Super Tuesday, Michael Bloomberg, he drops out and he coalesces around Joe Biden. Okay, and look, that's of course to be expected, right? So now here comes the interesting part. Now, Rachel Maddow, she comes out and says, Shaun, and basically accuses Shaun King of lying about this. So now here's her tweet. She said, what? No, I didn't report any such thing. So now the video I just showed you is of Letterman, right? Now that was on her show. They were having a panel doing Super Tuesday results. So now she explained that they reported that the party had asked Bloomberg to drop out so that Biden would have an easier time in the primary. An easier time against who? Bernie Sanders. So they were there to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. Well, that makes sense because Joe Biden's trying to win the nomination because he's trying to be president. And so it's a competition, right? That's kind of the whole point of running in a primary is to beat your opponents, to stop them from winning by winning yourself. And so, look, there's no question that that Michael Bloomberg being in this race was hurting the prospects of Joe Biden. That's why he dropped out. So now what exactly was wrong with Shaun King's tweet when he said, hey, Maddow just reported that there was pressure in the Democratic Party to have Bloomberg drop out because Bloomberg himself wanted to win too. He thought that he had a better shot at stopping Bernie Sanders. That was his whole point. To stop Bernie Sanders so that Bernie Sanders doesn't win the nomination and raise his taxes. And so now when it was shown that Michael Bloomberg had no path, right, and that he was hurting Biden, of course they were going to pressure him. What was wrong about that? Multiple influential officials pressured Bloomberg to drop out. And that's true. So now Shaun King responds to that by saying, no, you absolutely did. And then pointed to a video because he brought receipts, right? And said, this is you. You then say the Bloomberg campaign has experienced intense pressure from multiple sources inside the Democratic Party that he needs to quit. She was basically quoting Letterman's report that had happened earlier on her show. In fact, I want to show you, this is exactly what Rachel Maddow said.
Nobody has ever done this before, but still it's striking to hear Letterman say that the Bloomberg campaign is experiencing intense pressure from multiple sources inside the Democratic Party that he needs to quit.
It is striking. That's what she said. It is striking that we have multiple sources in the Democratic Party telling Bloomberg, pressuring, intense pressure to get Bloomberg out to help Biden. What was wrong with that? Where's the lie? Now, look, Shaun King frames it as they're interfering with the party. Well, now, if they're DNC officials, Democratic Party officials, they are supposed to be neutral in this process to let the voters decide, right? But we know that's not the case. We learned that in 2016 and 2015 when the DNC put their thumb, foot, and entire body, and then 12 other people on the scale against Bernie Sanders, right? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the former head of the DNC, had to resign in disgrace over being biased in favor of Hillary Clinton and doing that. We have documented evidence of that. We have the Podesta emails that showed that there was a clear preference inside of the Democratic Party for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. Nonetheless, you had some of the worst people that piled on Shaun King. And I'm going to read this, right? Because all of them are basically calling Shaun King a liar and saying, oh, do you have anything to prove it? Yeah, he has video. Those are your own words. I'm literally quoting you. In fact, Andrew Feinberg said, breaking, top Sanders surrogate, just making things up. No, they literally said that. She was referencing Letterman's report. That is news. People inside the Democratic Party are urging one candidate to drop out to support Joe Biden, to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination. That is not news. That is true. That it actually is happening. Jesus. Ken Olin tweets, I'm sick of this. This is why the Sanders campaign is so mistrusted. The Sanders campaign is mistrusted. Oh, no, we don't trust those Sanders guys. Even though we're sitting in back rooms and saying we cannot, and we're holding literal stop Sanders meetings with Pete Buttigieg. And to try to strategize on how to prevent Bernie Sanders from becoming the Democratic nominee. No, but you guys, you're the ones who are mistrusted. You Bernie bros with your conspiracies. Jesus. Now he added, quote, Maddow did not report this and senior officials are not interfering in the primaries. Bernie Sanders is a Democrat once every 4 years, and this shows you where he really stands. Maybe he's the one interfering in our primaries. Oh, that Bernie Sanders is an outside. He's not one of us. He's not a Democrat. No, he's only bringing new people into the party, but we don't want those people. We don't want you. No, we want good Democrats like Joe Biden, whose brain is melting as we speak. That's ridiculous. More, Dante Atkins says this, quote, this highlights how broken some people's brains are. If there's pressure on Bloomberg to drop out to consolidate behind a moderate, that's interfering. But pressure on Warren to drop out to support Sanders is good and normal. You just made a comparison between party officials and insiders with a lot of influence inside the party, even possibly super delegates, who will make the decision if there is a brokered convention of who is going to be the Democratic nominee. You are making a comparison between them and Twitter randos who support Bernie Sanders online. These are real. These are not real people. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Oh, no, they're the same thing. No, Dante Atkins, totally not the same thing. Roland Martin says, where's the link to prove this, Shaun? Maddow says this is a lie. Either present the truth or delete the tweet. Well, he did. He brought receipts. Literally in the video. Another very prominent anti-Sanders voice, Amy Siskin, says, blocking Shaun King and his BS and lies was one of the best moves I've made on Twitter. So basically what? You don't want to hear it, right? You don't want to hear anything that upsets your delicate narrative that is gaslighting the American people. It's ridiculous, right? But look, these people are a regular murderer's row of people who despise Bernie Sanders. Dante Atkins, Amy Siskin, Ken Olin, some of the others, I don't know, right? I think Roland Martin asked a legitimate question. Okay, where's your proof? You're making this charge. Where's your proof? Well, he's got the proof. He's literally got the receipts, okay? But a lot of them understand there are so many bad faith actors out there that are gaslighting you into thinking that it's just the Bernie bros with their conspiracy theories of how the Democratic Party elites inside the, leadership of the Democratic Party are not in favor of Bernie Sanders. They don't like him. They don't want his style of change because, look, the very thing that they point out, by the way, well, he's so hostile to the Democratic Party. Yeah, he's hostile to the leadership because the leadership, under their leadership, the Democrats have lost to Donald Trump and over 1,000 seats in local and state races. Yeah, with that kind of, leadership, I mean, who needs the Republicans, right? When basically you are the Republicans and you're basically saying everything the Republicans are doing is right. So here, we're just going to let you win because we suck. That's the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders says, you know what? I actually want to win on some issues and I actually want some change. So you know what? We're going to come in and we're going to see what we can do to clean this place up. Of course, they're not going to be in favor of that because they make money off of it. The way that it is right now, they make money off the status quo with your consultants, because some of these people are very wealthy consultants that are anti-Sanders, right? And they don't want things to change. They are bad faith actors. So understand that them and the media are against Bernie Sanders and progressives. MSNBC used to be considered progressive. Not at all now. No, they run negative story after negative story when it comes to Bernie Sanders. They didn't cover Joe Biden lying about getting arrested in South Africa. They don't go after him about his civil rights record. No, who are they constantly attacking? They're attacking the progressives. They're attacking Bernie Sanders. And by the way, they have no progressives on. None at all. Now, at least CNN pretends, right? And says, we're going to have Alexandra Rojas on, who is, leader of Justice Democrats, right? We're going to have her on, and we're going to get progressive perspective. They allow people like Anna Kasparian, John Iadarola, and Cenk Uygur on. At least Chris Cuomo does. And so at least they're having some progressives on. Whereas MSNBC, like, progressives? No. Why would we ever have a progressive on? No, Chris Hayes is about as close as you can get, right? And look, Chris Hayes, I don't have a problem with Chris Hayes. I think he's a nice guy, right? But it is very clear that progressives are deeply outnumbered on MSNBC. There are none if few of them, right? So, I mean, come on. Samuel Vimes points out in the chat that Sam Cedar is the only Bernie supporter on MSNBC. And Sam Cedar doesn't have a show on MSNBC either. He's not a host. He is a contributor, and he's a brilliant contributor. And so, yes, that is the only person that they have. They have very few progressives. Okay. When CNN is doing better than the supposed left-leaning network, well, I mean, come on. I think it's fairly obvious. All right. Anyway. Now, look, it's not just MSNBC. I know they're getting a lot of our ire right now, but it's also the New York Times, the Washington Post. They write negative article after negative article on Bernie Sanders. But yet the New York Times has people like David Brooks. I mean, David Brooks is a ghoul. Terrible, terrible person. Racist takes about him. Oh, but he's a never Trumper, so suddenly he's okay. No, ridiculous. They smear Bernie Sanders over his statements on Cuba, where he said something nice about literacy programs, also about Russia. And they do that, but they don't show the context, and they don't show Bernie Sanders criticizing authoritarian governments of Cuba and of Russia. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So understand, this is what we're up against. These are bad faith attacks, bad faith media actors, people like, look, I used to like Rachel Maddow, right? Maybe she didn't realize that, turns out there is a Stop Sanders movement in the Democratic Party. I could see how that would make some people angry. No, they can't even admit it. They can't admit it that there is a bias. But she is in the bubble, and in the bubble, the Democrats are the good guys. And how dare you come after the good guys because we're better than Trump? I mean, how can you say that we're bad? We're not Trump. Yeah, but here's the thing. Liberals get so angry when you deprive them of the moral high ground. And that's what Bernie Sanders is doing. When he says, actually, nobody should die from lack of health care in this country, and nobody should be making a substandard, sublivable wage. Everybody should make a livable wage. Well, when you come at them from the left with better ideas than what they're espousing, they're going to get upset. Like, oh, well, how dare you? No, we're supposed to be the moral high ground people. No, we're supposed to be better. How dare you try to hit us with that? Come in with your high horse. Well, it's true. It's true. And look, they've been ceding ground to Republicans by accepting Republican framing on these issues, on Medicare for all, right? And by saying that, hey, look, we really can't do better than the current system. We want to do better than the current system, but we can't. I love the idea of Medicare for all, but it's just never going to happen. And Mitch McConnell is going to stop it. The Republicans are going to stop it. Well, then what are you going to do to stop the Republicans? Well, maybe you should actually run people who aren't Republican light, who actually do want to change, and who actually have a chance at winning these elections. Because what you're doing is you're running Republican light and moderate candidates all over the country without addressing what people actually need and want. That's the problem. But it is convenient for you to say, well, we can't change anything because the Republicans won't let us change. Whereas the Republicans, they're like, we'll do whatever we want. We will steamroll everything in order to get what we want. The hell working with Democrats. And it's never the opposite. Democrats always say, we got to work with the Republicans. We've got to reach across the aisle if we're going to get anything done. Republicans say, no, we're just going to steamroll you 100%. Sad day for you. It is not an even playing field. And they are ceding, Democrats are ceding the moral high ground to Republicans by agreeing with their ridiculously bad framing on the issues. Now, we've got to defeat the Republicans. And in order to do that, it seems like we've got to defeat the corporate Democrats first. And it's within this disconnect between corporate Democrats and progressives that bad faith actors insert themselves who have financial interests in keeping the status quo. And that really is the problem, right? And I'm sure that I'm not sure who those people are, the bad faith actors. I'm sure who some of them are. But I do know Shaun King is absolutely right about this. They are working against Bernie Sanders. They're trying to stop him. And they're trying to gaslight us whenever we call that out and point out that this is not an even playing field. And that all we're trying to do is to end the systemic corruption in the Democratic Party so that it can actually represent the people again. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.